In this video, I want to talk about a question we get a lot when people are considering building their apps using no-code app development tools. Now, the question is usually some variation of, what if I can't build my entire app using no-code tools? Or what if when I get to the point of having X number of users or having X number of features or whatever it may be, what if when I get to that point, no-code tools no longer support my app? Essentially, they're thinking forward, they're thinking down the road, and maybe no code tools will work for them right now, but what if later on they don't? Then what? Now, the big fear here is that at some point, they'll have to rebuild their apps, or they'll have to essentially start from scratch. And so I understand the question, but I want to reframe this a little bit and help you understand when you should use no-code tools, why you should use no-code tools, and whether or not you should really be worried about potentially having to switch to a coded solution later on, for example. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No-Code Apps, where we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps to either start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding and with no technical background required. So what if you can no longer use no-code tools for some reason down the road? Should you be worried about this? Should you be concerned about this? The reality is usually no. Usually you shouldn't be worried about this. Now, I want to preface this by saying that, again, I understand this. Before I was in the no-code space, before I was in the online business space, before I knew anything about business or online business at all, I went through this very same thought process. In fact, I spent months when I was first wanting to launch a really simple website. I spent months trying to figure out which platform I should use, because I was thinking about all of the things that I wanted to do with that website in the future, and all of the ways I wanted to transform and evolve it once I hit certain levels of success and all of these things. I spent months trying to figure out which website development platform I wanted to use. And then whenever I finally decided, I spent months starting to create and build things, only to get to the point where that fear crept back into my mind, where I was thinking, oh, what if I'm not going down the right path? What if I shouldn't be using, these tools or whatever it is? And then I would switch and use something else. And I would spend months creating and still kind of thinking in the back of my mind, am I really going down the right path? What if this isn't going to let me do, all of these things that I want to do down the road? This went on for months and months and months. I mean, over a year easily. And the funny thing is that a while later, once I realized that that was not a very efficient path to go down, I had another site that I wanted to create and launch. And instead of thinking about all of the things that I wanted to do down the road and whether or not the tools that I was using would support that, instead of thinking about all of those things and planning for all of those things, I reined that way in and I thought, what is it that I want to do right now? What is it that I want to achieve right now? Well, the very first thing I want to be able to do is just get traffic onto this site. That's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to get traffic on. I wanted to start building an email list so that I could start actually generating revenue from it. And whenever I thought about my immediate goals instead of all those long-term things that I wanted to do, that I wanted to evolve it into, it was really simple. And I found the simplest way to move forward and I did it in about a month. I didn't think too much into it. I did it in about a month, and within that month, I had people onto the site, people onto the email list, all of the things that I wanted. I had so much more in that single month than I did in that full year prior, because I was no longer thinking about all of the problems that I didn't actually have and that I might never have. So let's bring this back now to using no code tools. The reality is you want to try to get the quickest traction that you can with your app. This is what we always advise. And you know what I'm going to do is switch over to my whiteboard here. The way we see most people building their apps is, let's say this is the starting point over here. They kind of build everything at once. So let's say that this happens over, 1 year of time. And this here is the projection of the, the development of their app. They build everything at once. But what we really like to see people do instead is build their app in segments. That's a really poor drawing, but just bear with me here. We like to see you building your app in segments where, over here we have version 1, and then here maybe we just have an evolved version 1, and then over here we have version 2, and over here we have version 3. And then at each breakpoint here, we're doing testing, and, at breakpoints, we're getting feedback. Okay, so we like to break it up into chunks like this. And there are a lot of reasons why we do this, and we're not going to get into all of them in this video, but the one thing that I really want to highlight is that at each breakpoint here, we have a really specific goal. And that goal can be lots of different things. In my early days website example, one of my initial goals was to just start getting traffic, any traffic at all, on the site. And, this goal right here for you could be to have your first 10 beta users, or it could be to just have that first functioning version of your product and to just have some alpha users. Your goal over here could be to have your first 100 users, or it could be to have your first 10 paying users, maybe if your beta users aren't paying. The goals can vary. They really depend on you, on each individual person. But the thing to understand is that instead of coming up here and building everything at once and trying to hit on every single goal you could possibly have all in one go, and this usually in most people's minds, that goal is just massive success. It's usually undefined. You don't even really know what it is. So instead of building everything at once and just aiming for every single goal at once, break it down. Because when you're up here, when your mindset is up here, then you are thinking about everything that happens over here when you're at the very start. And you have to go through each of these milestones, these testing points, these feedback points. You have to go through all of these to even figure out what this point over here should look like. You cannot know what that point should look like until you go through this kind of flow right here. Okay, and so if your mind is way at the end before you've even started and you're thinking, well, what if I have to, switch to a coded solution later on for some reason, you're going to have a really, really hard time ever building up this initial traction where you are getting those first users, where you are maybe even getting your first paying users, where you're starting to build that user base, starting to generate a revenue, right? You may never need to switch over to a coded solution. It's we don't see people needing to do that. It's a fear just because the no code space is relatively new, and so a lot of people just don't understand it, and so that's why that fear is there. But we don't see that happening. But let's just say that hypothetically that was something that you may do down the road. Well, you'll never know if you need to do it unless you get there. And you're going to have a really hard time getting there if you don't just get started. And if you don't start aiming for these initial goals instead. When you start aiming for these initial goals, that's when you start building traction. That's when you start building users. That's when you start building your revenues. And then if you have all those things in place, if for some reason you ever wanted to move away from no code tools in the future, well, then you can justify it. Because then, like I said, you have those users, you have that base, you have those revenues, you have a growing business, so you can justify it. So I really, really encourage you to think a little bit more incrementally. Try to avoid having your thoughts be all the way down here all the time, especially before you've ever gotten started. You have to go through lots of different initial goals and milestones to ever get there. And if you stop worrying about all of those things that may never happen, that's what's going to allow you to actually build that initial traction. That's what's going to allow you to move forward with your app, start making progress, start seeing real success and real traction. So, should you be worried about having to move away from no code tools? Should you avoid starting to create your app, to create your business using no code tools? Because at some point in the future, something could possibly change. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend not using no code tools simply because of a hypothetical what if. Now I know this is a little bit of tough love, real talk, but I'm it's coming from a place of me caring about you because I've been there. I've been there multiple times. There are lots of people who are thinking the same things, but in reality, this is the mindset that's actually going to help you move forward, create your app, launch your app, build your business, grow your business, and even see, if you ever have the problems that you think you may have now. Likely you're not going to, because again, you just have so many initial milestones and goals to hit earlier on. So just build the traction now, start moving forward. All right. I hope that was helpful for you. And if you have not started building your app quite yet, or if you've started building it, but you want to make sure you are headed in the right direction, which you should be doing, we have a free training that you can join in on where we guide you through our step-by-step process for putting together some strategy, exploring some tools, and just making sure that you're moving forward with your app in the right direction. You can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to join in on that. So again, I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.